What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton could have been the victim of sabotage within his own Ferrari team? What if the data reveals that someone intentionally altered the behavior of your car just when you needed it most? Stay, because what you are about to hear is one of the most explosive truths of the entire 2025 Formula One season. It all started with what, at first glance, seemed like a bad day at the office. Braking problems, sudden loss of performance, a car that simply did not respond to the driver's commands. But what drew attention was not the failure itself, but how it occurred. The anomalies manifested themselves abruptly, without warning, at key moments of the race. Just before entering the curve, just when Hamilton was trying to defend his position. Erratic behavior that not even a pilot with his level of mechanical sensitivity could anticipate. From that moment on, the narrative changed. It was not a simple technical problem. There was something else. In the following days, what was leaked to the press was not an official statement, but rather whispers coming from Ferrari's technical core. Worried engineers, uncomfortable mechanics, data that did not fit with the official explanation. The telemetry revealed thermodynamic imbalances in the rear braking system, in ranges that should never have been reached with that setup. Furthermore, the differential, suspension and brake balance settings appeared to have been modified shortly before the race. Who authorized these changes? And why wasn't Hamilton informed? Because if it is confirmed that there was sabotage, we would not be talking about a technical failure or human error. We would be facing an internal attack that completely reconfigures the perception of Ferrari as an organization. And that would not only damage its sporting credibility, it would call into question its ability to protect its own drivers. The big question now is, was Hamilton a direct target, or simply the first visible symptom of a much deeper internal war? How long has this division been brewing within Ferrari, and to what extent are the different sides willing to go to retain or regain power? Because when a team begins to distrust itself, what is at stake is no longer points or titles. It is its own identity. And today that identity is in question. After the emotional impact generated by Hamilton's strange abandonment in Singapore, the focus immediately shifted to technical analysis. And it is here where the story acquires an unusual gravity. Because the data doesn't lie. Telemetry from the 44th SF25 not only showed a sudden drop in performance. What it revealed was a sequence of events impossible to explain without considering the hypothesis of external intervention. The brake-by-wire system, which electronically manages the balance between the hydraulic brakes and the energy recovery of the MGUK, presented completely atypical patterns. During the second stint, just when drivers must precisely manage brake temperatures to maintain performance and reliability, the SF25 began to register thermal peaks in the rear discs well above the safety threshold. But it was not a progressive overheating as occurs in normal conditions of thermal stress. It was sudden, specific, almost surgical. A critical curve, decisive braking, and the system collapsed. This thermal irregularity cannot be explained by driving style alone, much less in the hands of a driver with Hamilton's millimeter precision. But this was just the beginning. Subsequent analysis detected inconsistencies in the calibration of the differential, an essential component that distributes engine torque between the rear wheels. Changing its configuration even minimally completely alters the car's stability under braking and traction when exiting slow corners. And the most worrying thing is that these parameters had been modified from the engineering environment just before the car was sealed for the race. Because, with what justification? And above all, who had the access and authorization to make those changes without informing the pilot? The height sensors also showed altered values. The SF25 rolled lower on the rear axle than stipulated in its base configuration for Singapore, affecting the car's aerodynamic balance. This not only compromises the distribution of weight and aerodynamic load, but also increases the risk of rebound due to ground effect, and in this case directly affects the braking capacity by loading more weight on the rear axle. Such an alteration is not accidental. Requires direct intervention, knowledge of the car's configuration software, and authorized access to the central system. This is where signs of sabotage take a tangible form. Because we are not talking about a defective part or an unexpected breakage. We are talking about engineering decisions executed without communication to the driver or the main race engineer. And there is a detail that makes everything even more sinister. In the radio recordings between Hamilton and his engineer during the race, the Briton repeats several times that the car is not responding like it did in free practice. He even uses the phrase that now resonates strongly within the paddock. This has never happened to me in my career. That statement, coming from someone with more than 300 Grand Prix contests, is not trivial. It reflects absolute confusion. A driver of his level perceives every micro-change in his car like an orchestra musician feels every variation in his instrument. And what Hamilton felt in Singapore was not part of the script. Following this analysis, Ferrari has requested the support of the FIA to audit the traceability of the modifications made to the pre-race software. It is investigated whether there was external access or whether the manipulation came from within the team's own environment. Because if it is proven that someone from Maranello with privileged access intentionally changed the car's configurations, we would be facing one of the most serious technical scandals in the recent history of the championship. This episode highlights something that is often forgotten. In modern Formula One, where technology has reached almost scientific levels, sabotage does not need a wrench. Just one click, one line of code, an instruction sent to the system at just the right time to turn a championship car into a death trap. And that possibility, until now unthinkable within Ferrari, is today an active part of an investigation that can change everything. What began as a technical suspicion has transformed into an institutional crisis of alarming proportions. Ferrari, the most emblematic team in Formula One, is experiencing one of its most delicate moments not on the track, but in its internal corridors. Because what is at stake here is no longer just the performance of a car or the points of a championship. It is the integrity of the team as an organization. And that integrity now hangs by a thread. The tension in Maranello is not new. For years, Ferrari has had a history marked by internal struggles, erratic decisions from management, and a profound resistance to change. Over the decades, figures such as Jean Todt, Ross Brawn, and Luca di Montezemolo managed to establish periods of stability through clear authority and strategic cohesion. But that culture of unity has been fading. Today, Ferrari is a divided team, where decisions are negotiated, responsibilities are diluted, and leadership is silently questioned. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton, far from being a cohesive factor, has functioned as a catalyst that has intensified pre-existing fissures. His figure, imposing by nature, brought with him not only experience but a new way of working, demanding, methodical, direct. Not everyone within the team was prepared to adapt to that philosophy. Some sectors, especially at mid-level engineering levels, saw their arrival as a threat to traditional internal balances. The result has been an environment of distrust. Mechanics who avoid speaking openly in the paddock. Engineers passing notes to each other instead of communicating through official channels. And a team manager, Fred Vasseur, who suddenly finds himself in the middle of a storm that could take him with it. The internal investigation that he has had to initiate, more due to external pressure than of his own will, has placed him in an uncomfortable situation. Either he discovers sabotage within his own structure, or he remains the leader who lost control of the team in one of the most sensitive moments in its history. But this is not just a leadership issue. It is a symptom of a structure that has not been renewed with the depth that the present demands. While McLaren and Mercedes have modernized their operations, integrating more dynamic workflows and more compact multidisciplinary teams, Ferrari continues to suffer from a hierarchical and bureaucratic culture that slows down processes and stifles innovation. In this environment, an internal conflict quickly escalates. And when that conflict involves a driver of Hamilton's magnitude, it becomes a media bomb with global repercussions. There is another key factor that cannot be ignored: the position of Charles Leclerc. The Monegasque driver has been the face of Ferrari for years. A talent from the house, pampered by the structure from the lower categories. His coexistence with Hamilton has been cordial in public, but tense in private. Comparisons are inevitable, and strategic decisions that favor one or the other begin to generate suspicions of favoritism or sabotage. The accident at the Singapore GP, in this context, has reactivated rumors of internal struggles that could be related to the fight for control of the technical team that manages each car. In parallel, Hamilton's environment has begun to move. His inner circle, which includes lawyers, representatives, and technical advisors, is gathering information, pushing for transparency and laying the groundwork for a potential contract battle if it is proven that his security was intentionally compromised. Because if it is proven that the sabotage came from within, we would be facing an unprecedented case that could even end up in court. Ferrari thus faces an existential dilemma. Either carry out an internal purge that restores trust and redefines your structure from top to bottom, or you will continue to feed a culture of silent sabotage, where egos outweigh results. In the midst of this storm, sponsors begin to get restless, the media lurk with uncomfortable questions, and the fans, who have been patient for years, begin to lose faith. Do you think it really was sabotage from within the team? Or are we facing a series of technical errors that were magnified by media pressure? What consequences do you think there should be if the deliberate intervention on Hamilton's car is confirmed? Leave it in the comments.